Well, Colby, I think this is going to be our shortest episode. Um,
I think so
we might
too,
be
honestly.
we might be done here in like 5 minutes. We're supposed to talk about mistakes that we've made, but like neither of us have made mistakes, so it's just there's not a whole lot to say. Thanks for listening. Thanks for stopping by, and I guess we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much. Subscribe. Bye. Just boom.
We this ironically might be our longest episode because we both have screwed up a lot. I'm sure. Um, where do we even begin? Maybe it's good to start by like why are mistakes not just okay to make, but like why are they necessary and actually a good thing at the end of the day, right? Like obviously there's the stereotypical like, oh, that's how you learn things, whatever. But like we can and like we know that, but sometimes you don't like know it
Yeah.
until you like really go through the process, right? So maybe that could be valuable, like to kick off. Like what is that as a high level, big picture thing? What is your journey as a whole kind of been like with navigating and sort of accepting that mistakes are part of the process and working through those, and like what has that sort of felt like for you?
Yeah. I think the title says it all. Such a cool title, by the way. It just kind of encompasses what we're after. Basically, it being mistakes are the portals of discovery, right? And I think that says a lot where once you start shifting that mindset to, okay, mistakes are good because of what it can lead to. It can lead to that discovery. It can lead to more knowledge. It can lead to more skills, growth, all the stuff that we're after, all the stuff that we talk many times about on the training arc, right? It's like that's what we're here for. Yes, outcome is part of it, and we're gonna embrace that and aim for that, but we're here for that growth. We're here for that journey. And I think when you really embrace that mistakes are part of it, one, it becomes easier in a way because you're like, hey, this is going to happen, right? Rather than getting punched in the face by it and you're like, oh no, like this is bad, and then you have this negative connotation to it, and then it's difficult to navigate, right? Once you accept it, saying this is good, this is part of it, then that's where the growth comes. Of course, a lot easier said than done. It's going to be different from person to person because it is a skill as anything else. So some people will be good at navigating that and not letting the negative thoughts creep in, but some others might have a little bit more difficulty doing that. Either way, it's okay. But in either way, we can always improve. And that's, again, one of the big themes here is just talking about why mistakes are important to improve. And we thought it'd just be valuable to share some of the stuff that we've come across so that you don't make the same mistakes, or at least, you can be better equipped if something like that comes across your way. And I think another important thing to touch upon is, when we are reflecting on these mistakes, it comes from a kind place, right? And this is for you as the listener to then do in your own practices, is we don't want to beat ourselves up when we think about the mistakes, right? Saying like, oh, I should have done that. It happened in the past. You can't go back and change that in the past, but you can change the future, event that occurs that is similar to that, and how you approach it and how you think about it. So that's what we're kind of focused on here, is that tangible note of how can I think about this and how can I then make it an action in the future, right? And that does very much come with kindness rather than any negative side to it. So I think that's kind of the preface here, is like, let's be kind to ourselves. Let's embrace mistakes. They're part of the process. They're arguably the most important ones, because if you don't make mistakes, how are you going to get better? We're not perfect as much as we say that we are here on the training arc. We're definitely not. and we had to edit our script from 157 pages to now 52. So we just omitted basically the past 25 years from me. I'm kidding. But yeah, I think that's kind of where I start off. So I think basically when we ask you that question, Jake, what are some of the mistakes you made? What's one of the ones that comes to your forefront, and how have you thought about it, navigating?
Um, this is maybe kind of like a meta level one, but like this very thing of being scared to make mistakes was a mistake, right? Um, it really can hold you back in terms of we've all heard that like paralysis by analysis, that kind of thing. And that, like, I have been the most shining example of that in the past. And, just a fear of, to me, I think everybody has, it's not about the mistake, right? Like there's something else that we're worried about. Maybe it's somebody's perception of us, or we want to come off as if we're we really know what we're doing, and we're scared if we make a mistake that people will think that we don't. Or like for me, a big thing has always been time. Like, um, you know, if I do something wrong and then later I'm just like, man, I wasted all that time. Like, it's horrible. I don't want to waste time. I want to have this dialed in from the beginning, and that's held me back from making decisions. Where ultimately, right, like, as we now know, as more science has come out and more, we just get more coaching experience, training experience. If you make a mistake, it's not like you're going to make zero progress or you're going to get smaller. Maybe you just get slightly less of, you get 90% of the results instead of 100 or whatever, right? So it's still like you're still moving forward. There's no reason for it to feel that dire in terms of like wasting time. Like that was just such a big thing for me that I had to learn it. Actually, my coach one day was just like, he explained it to me in this way that really hit home for me, and was basically like, this ultimately comes down to being mature and trusting yourself. Like, you've looked into this, you've tried to figure out the right decision. Just do it. Trust yourself. Like, trust your preparation, trust your knowledge, trust the research that you did, quote unquote, and just do the thing. And if later you find out there's a better option, then cool, just shift and do that. But it's, you hold yourself back so much by just not trusting yourself, or trusting the process. That was huge for me, and I think has helped immensely with just being able to actually make decisions. That ironically, I probably make less mistakes now that I'm taking action, right? Despite there being more opportunities for mistakes because I'm trying more things. It's like the biggest mistake is just not doing anything. At least for me, it was. So that was a big one for me that has been applicable to much more than just, it's more than just training, more than nutrition. Like, it's everything in life, which is another thing we talk about a lot here on the Training Art, right? So that's a big one for me. Do you have any? You're up. Your turn.
First, I don't like that when he talks about maturity, you looked around my room and like you were trying to say something like, bro, you need to grow up and get rid of all the anime merchandise, because I take offense to that. I choose not to be mature because it's more fun that way.
A wise man once said, "We all have to grow old, but not all of us have to grow up," and that's what I would like to do.
There it is. That's the one. That's all I need to hear. Thank you for clearing up the air. I just didn't want to, have any bad blood between us. Yeah, I think one note too about just what really helped me with like being okay with making mistakes, like you said, because I'm very much in the same boat where I'm just paralysis by analysis in many ways. But I think one thing that I realized that made me embrace that was baking. Because I remember the first time I tried making cookies. This is back when I was in New Zealand, and I was living in a home, basically in a room with a family upstairs. And I always felt like I was overstepping, even though they were the kindest people. Like, I always felt bad going upstairs to cook, because I wanted to be mindful of their space and their stuff that they were doing. So I would sometimes have to cook later in the day, just because on my own self. That's what I would do. So if I ever wanted to bake, I had to go up there, and there's very limited equipment to use for baking, and there was not even an actual oven. They ended up getting like a smaller, like half oven or toaster oven even. So I was like, okay, I think I can make cookies here, and I tried to, and I had like the 6 cookies out on the sheet, and they all spread and merged into like one pan sheet cookie thing. And I sat there and I was just laughing. I'm like, oh gosh, what is this? And I'm like, I'm not gonna waste the food though, obviously. So I eat it, and it was delicious. It was so good. And I'm like, damn, even when I mess up, it can still taste as good.
Yeah.
And for me, I just always think back to that, and other experiences of baking. Like, even if you adjust it slightly, sure, there's some points where it's like harder to come back from, but a lot of times it's still gonna taste good. It's still gonna be edible. It's still gonna be great. Sometimes you might find you like it a certain way because of that mistake you made, brought out certain flavors or brought out a thing that made it better in the end. So that really opened my eyes to mistakes can be better than doing it how you thought originally, right? so that's
Isn't that like the story of peanut butter cups? Like, they
yeah. I feel like
accidentally mixed peanut butter and chocolate,
yep.
and we're like, "Oh wow, this is great."
And thankfully they did, because where would we be without that combination?
I would be lost.
I don't know. We might even be here as human beings at this level. Society has been caveman days still.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's something that always reminds me of it, or just like helps me navigate mistakes. I think specifically when I think about paralysis by analysis, and then bring it back to, I think specifically training. This is one thing that took me a little bit longer to get, because first starting out, again, because we've come such a long way with how much knowledge we have, both research and just knowledge and experience as coaches, as you had said. I just remember the first one being so attached to barbell movements, barbell bench, barbell squat, barbell deadlift. Like if you're not doing the big three, you're not resistance training. Like you need to do the squat is the king of exercises. And if you were doing it with a Smith machine, you would be made fun of. Right. And then I'm not gonna lie, that was a mistake I made too. I was like, the Smith machine is a waste. Like, why do we even have this in the gym?
Sure.
Fast forward to now, I use the Smith machine all the time. I barely even touch a barbell.
Yeah.
But kind of, I think once I started to let go of those ideas of attachments to things, or like this needs to be done, this type of exercise is essential. And that happened a lot when I started transitioning more to bodybuilding style stuff. And again, as we're getting more knowledge, it just made training more feasible, more enjoyable. I was making better gains because, again, if I'm trying to create hypertrophy, machines do a really good job of that, essentially, right? And whereas a barbell back squat can very well work, but maybe other variables come into play, making it a little bit harder, right? So now I can just maximize, and I can, once I started diving into the bodybuilding training, I was doing more and thinking less, which helped getting over that paralysis by analysis thing, right? And I think that was really helpful. And a kind of similar note for the training side of things was just being too specific about trying to get it in RAR, right? Like I need to hit RP 8. Okay, like is that 8.5? Is that a 7.5? Is that even a 9? I don't know. Maybe you should bring it back because it's if I'm getting too close to failure now. And I would spend so much time trying to figure out what my RPE was, and it comes down to it, I just wasn't even training hard enough. And then that ties to the next one. Like I said, they all play a role, so then I'll end it at this one. But that being hyper aware of my technique, and any slight deviation of that technique, I felt like, okay, so cut the set there, right? So that combination of what's my RPE, is my technique slight deviation, I felt it, a little shift in my squat, cut it there. It's not perfect. All that led to me not training hard enough and getting actually close to proximity of failure that I needed to. And I was kind of missing out on some gains. And I feel confident saying that because now, as I am training harder, I'm seeing much better progress over the years or two of doing that and maximizing hypertrophy style training and all that. So I think, yeah, kind of just all that and the training side of things comes together in that kind of theme. So
Sure.
go ahead, make fun of me. Go ahead. Your turn.
Yeah, no, I can. I think what's funny about obviously we both love the evidence-based side of training and the science side. Like we've taken the science side about as far as we can go outside of a full-time career in academia. Like we both done research quite a bit, and I think people like us who are drawn to that side, science is a beautiful thing, right? And it's so like the whole point of science is to try to get closer to the truth and to try to in this application of science, like what is the most efficient, best way to get as jacked as possible. And we learn these things and we combine it with some logic, like, okay, really, really good, crisp technique makes sense that would be a little bit better than, but then we're so enticed by that we lean into it too much and we let it sabotage some. I did a huge mistake for me too, is like, but the research says this though. Of course, at the time, not understanding the limitations of the research, right? Or the same thing as you, where I was so preoccupied with what is my RIR or RPE, what does my technique look like? I can't let anything, my rest period has to be exactly 2 minutes. If it's 2.5, and it doesn't matter, man. Like, and now we even have there's that study that was super strict technique versus more loose technique, and it was the same, right? So it just doesn't matter as much as we thought that it did, right? And I think that's sort of a journey that most people who are drawn to the science-based side or the evidence-based side, we all sort of have to face that at some point, where we have to acknowledge that, yeah, the science is important and it's helpful, but it's definitely not everything. And we got to not let that get in our way of, at the end of the day, just training hard and just putting forth a lot of effort. That was another nugget of wisdom from my coach early on was literally, it was not even early on, it was day one. I sent him what I'd been doing, my latest training logs, and he was just like, "Oh, you just aren't training enough." Like that was his first thought. And he was like, "Yeah, you need more brute. Like quit thinking so much. Think when you're in the lab. When you're in the gym, brute strength. Be an athlete. Obviously, we'll manipulate the programming so you don't, burn out and get too fatigued, whatever, but like, you know what I mean? Like just get out of your head so much." And that was another huge thing for me. Just not overthinking everything and getting too bogged down in those little tiny details. And those are really good guardrails, right, to kind of work within. But um, I've very strongly embraced, just at the end of the day, just work hard. Like I don't count RIR at all anymore. It just was it really close to failure? Yes, cool. It sort of checks the box. And is that more optimal than something else? Who knows? But it certainly is within that, towards what I believe is the most effective end of the spectrum. Not necessarily the most thing, but it's at least very close, and it allows my brain to focus on other things that probably matter a little bit more. And so, yeah, I relate strongly.
Yeah. Small caveat there. We think less now because we thought so much before. What I mean by
True.
that is,
True.
you're probably the same way. I'm gonna have clients write down the RERs when we first start off because I want to see
Sure.
what that looks like. I want to make sure it's where the accuracy lies, and then we can be more flexible about what we're recording, how we're recording it, right? So we're not gonna say, if client that we have is like, hey, I heard that you said that none of it matters. Why are we doing this? I just kind of to point out there, like, hey, we need to do a little bit of it to make sure, just to see where we're at and to see where we can make some improvements. And that's where, nowadays, I don't know about you, but I'll just throw like some audits in there. Maybe I'll just do my last set. I'll have an RAR in my head even, or I'll write it down, or at the end of a block, I'll go take it to failure to double check my RAR accuracy, whatever it is, right? There's still ways around it, but it doesn't have to be RAR every single set and thinking like that. So just pointing that out before we
Good
get
thing to throw in there.
emails.
And it's certainly also, if somebody, I think almost everybody that I coach, I ask for RIR stuff.
Yeah.
And there's various like biggest one is if strength is a goal for you, it matters a lot more, right? You can't just pound yourself into the dirt and come back the next week and be completely fine. So there's a lot of situations where it still is helpful, but at least for me personally, with my goals and the way that my psychology is, it's just easier to just
Exactly. Yeah.
whatever. And the audit thing is something that I'll do every once in a while. For like, honestly, for the most part, outside of like RDLs, no, hack squat, leg press, that kind of stuff is hit and miss. But other than that, I pretty much just go to 0 RIR and everything, just because it's easier. I don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
Those things I'll aim for like 1 RIR, which means in reality it's probably like 3. So it's like, okay, you're still close enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm rambling a long time about this point.
I think for all valuable information, I kind of snuck that in there too. But one other thing that came up when you were talking about that is, this is just fresh out the oven. 30 minutes ago, I saw Cliff Wilson make a post about science, interpretation, communication. And the way he phrased it was so, I might butcher it, so I apologize. Go check it out. But it's like, are we going to wait for permission from science to tell us what we do? Yeah. like if just because we don't have science behind a way that is training, are we just not going to do it? Or are we going to refute the progress that, say, some of his clients or some highly coaches, athletes that produce good work to step on stage, whatever it is, are we just going to negate that completely just because there's not science behind it? No, we're not. Does that mean we completely avoid science? No, we're not. No, either, right? We find somewhere on that spectrum of, using science for a baseline, or interpreting it and putting it into practice, adjusting for context, right? Stuff we always say and approach it in that way. But I think that idea of just not waiting for permission for science, I think is big. And like, okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it falls in line with what we're talking about, of just being okay with making mistakes, because we could say, oh, science says this, But if we go the other route, I mean, again, maybe we find a training regimen, program, exercise approach, whatever, that works extremely well for this athlete, and just maybe we just didn't know about it in the science realm or in the coaching realm just yet, because again, still very early on in all that stuff. So we kind of need to experiment. We need to do our own little science within our coaching and in ourselves before, and then that always leads to the science that comes out in the labs later in the years too, right? It's that cycle that we always talk about as well. So I think that's another thing to think about. It's like, do I need permission from science? No, you'll be okay.
I agree. Science is slow, man.
Oh yeah. I think that just gave us some pain in both of our minds and hearts, thinking about like, oh yeah, it's so slow.
I think as like a quick, I don't know, rapid fire, I guess. Like we're talking about like higher level stuff, right? But like some, I guess, more specific training examples for me would be stuff like what haven't we hit on yet? Like I got sucked in a little too deeply, I think, to some of the just random trends that would pop up, right? Like there was a trend where we got to stay really far from failure all the time, or there's a trend where we got to do everything to failure, or everything's length and partials, or nothing is, or everything is slow tempo on the eccentric. Like it's nowadays I'm pretty steady, right? Like I just have tried a bunch of stuff and found out, but like early on, you see these things, you see all these huge people, super jacked, great results doing a certain thing. It's hard not to be swayed a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So you have just more and more experience. So like there's been a bunch of those little things that I would do, or I would get really upset at the thought of like missing a session, where then it's like, I'll just do it tomorrow, right? If there's not like a crazy deadline or whatever. That's also gone too far in the other direction, where I've had times where it's like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. It doesn't matter. I'll do it tomorrow. And then all of a sudden I haven't trained in 5 or 6 days. Oh, whoops. Right. So like, that's actually kind of my problem these days is, and what I'm trying to, that's my current biggest goal with bodybuilding is to make it one of the top priorities every day again, like in prep, right? Like, is it my number one every day? Not necessarily, but it's close at least. It's non-negotiable. I'm going to train or do my cardio. I'm going to do my pose. I'm going to hit my macros. Now is, right? Just not really. And things are just, not, they're very far from optimal and whatever. So like, and it's just easy for me to make those excuses because there's not a deadline and there, so that's probably my most recent mistake, training wise, is just being a little too casual, I think. And I'm trying to kind of tap back into that like prep mindset to an extent, not quite as much because that's unsustainable to do that always, but just finding that middle ground, not relaxing quite.
You heard it here first, folks. 2027, Jake returns to the stage.
Honestly, like I could start dieting tomorrow. Like I feel fine.
Yeah.
It's just I've not built any muscle, obviously, right? So.
I think one of my more recent ones is kind of a two-parter, but they play a role in one another. Is first not filming my sets more, because
It's a good one.
It's funny. I tell my clients all the time to film. I tell everyone else all the time to film. But for me, I just never did because I was just training and I was loving it, or I felt like I didn't want to be in people's ways with the camera or whatever it is.
I'm embarrassed.
Yeah. I don't think I was embarrassed because I embarrassed myself just walking in the gym wearing all my anime gear and being loud anyway.
So my secret is I'm always embarrassed.
That's what I'm saying. I just don't care about those things. I was just probably overthinking, like, oh man, I don't want to, have this camera be in the way or have someone get in the background if they don't want to be. And I'm also just so focused on my training, like I just can't be asked to put the camera like, I want to have my music. I want to be zoned in. I don't have to think about the camera. But when I actually started filming more recently, I'm like, damn, my technique could see improvements here, right? Trying to be, not fall down that other path of being too over analytical, but it's like, okay, I'm squatting my deadlift more than I am hinging. I need to fix that. And kind of in similar line, specifically with that deadlift one, is I was trying to push load more just because I wanted to make sure I was training hard. But there are certain exercises where that came at the expense of technique. But if I wasn't filming, I wouldn't really have noticed that because I was like, hey, I'm completing the reps. It's making it happen. I'm not getting injured. I'm not close to getting injured. So it's the numbers going up. So that makes sense. But at what cost? And especially in the hypertrophy game, probably not worth those costs. So I think being able to have something to give that objective feedback like video is so helpful. And then of course just having the camera up in the first place, you're kind of just like, okay, damn, someone's watching. Even if you don't post it, even if no one is actually watching, because they aren't, you're like, okay, this camera's, I'm filming this. Like, I need to make sure I'm dialed in. Sometimes that adds a little bit to it too, where you like, need to perform well in a sense. And then, hey, if you want to post it, you can. That can be beneficial. Or if you're just sending it to yourself or your coach, whatever it is, it can be super helpful. So if you're not doing it, do it now.
Agreed.
Yeah.
That's a really good one. That's one that I've had a weird relationship with myself.
Yeah.
Like you get, I've kind of. It's funny to think about this now. I feel like a lot of these things I've gone on both sides
Yeah.
of. Like there was, I first started lifting and I was just sort of uncomfortable and like I'm not filming anything. And also, 10 years ago, people weren't filming stuff like they do now.
On my razor flip phone, of course I was, dude.
Yeah. It just wasn't nearly as much of a thing. And then when I was powerlifting, like you record your top sets or whatever because you want to see your technique, and maybe you send it to your coach or whatever, and it's super normalized and it's really out of the way. Like the squat rack is not in the middle of the gym. But in bodybuilding, it's just like, man, it just, I'm like you, I don't want to be in the way, and I don't want to have to like ask the 50-year-old woman on the machine behind me, like, hey, are you okay if you're in my, like, I just don't want to deal with it. And so, and I just would feel embarrassed. Like people are going to look at me and cringe and like, and, but then I've had periods of time where I'm just like, no, dude, like this is normal. People just do this. This is like, I go to the crunch gym that I go to, and at any given time, there's 5 to 10 tripods sitting out there. And, it's normal. No one cares. But for some reason, when I go to do it myself, I'm just like, everybody cares.
Yeah.
So it's weird. But so I've had a weird relationship with that. It's like you're saying, it's super useful, right? You see stuff, it probably feels fine while you're doing it technique wise, but maybe when you see the video, you see some stuff you can change. So it can be useful. What about nutrition stuff? You have any like? I think that I've had less things on that because I was fortunate to find some great information off the rip. I think that coincidentally, it's kind of a similar thing where the overthinking is kind of what got me early on. Like when I first started, I was like, "Oh, clean eating is the thing." Dude.
Yeah.
But it was only like 6 months or something before I found out about flexible dieting, and I was like, "This makes much more sense." And I was chilling. But then at times I go too far in that direction, and I'm just like, "Yeah, this is none of that stuff matters as long as you hit your macros." And then it becomes, which I think is mostly true. And then it's like, well, macros on the weekly scale, right?
Yeah.
And then it's you can nudge that goalpost a lot, and then all of a sudden you look up and you're just like, bro, I had pizza last night, I had Chinese food today, my protein's been low 3 days in a row. I can't just double my protein intake tomorrow to make up for that. That's not how it works. And so you kind of I've gone too far in either of those directions, but that's probably been my main one, which again, I'm just fortunate to have found good information early on. But maybe thinking supplements are cooler than they are early on. I had that idea. I used to like make my own pre-workout. I would order a bunch of individual ingredients.
That's a dangerous game. You're like,
it is dangerous. But
this is definitely 300 milligrams of caffeine.
It was fun though. I was like, oh, if Ben Hesro can do this, I can do it. And, but he's a little smarter than me with that stuff. So, anyway, do you have any nutrition things?
A lot, yeah. I think this is where I've had a lot of mistakes, but I think, like we always said, I've now have so much skills in that area because I've been through a lot of things. I think, like obviously, the first one is just eating way too much, not thinking at all about what I mean. But that's kind of said. But I think what I do want to talk about is just I tried all the diets. I tried paleo. I tried keto. I tried whatever acronym words that you can think of. I probably tried it because when I first started off in like middle school, high school, that's what the magazines were saying. That's just what like the hype started coming up of. So I was like, okay, yeah, it makes sense. If I don't eat carbohydrates, my body's gonna burn the fat. Like that just makes sense. And when you think about it like that, it kind of does. But I just didn't know any better. So I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And I remember like bringing my chicken, spinach, and olive oil to school and just be like, wow, this is good, guys. This is really cool. Just like cringing at like the dry spinach. Just like, yeah, no, it's good. And and yeah, man, I just remember going through all those things. Paleo, same thing. It's like, well, if they weren't eating it, why am I going to eat it? Like Whole Foods, and they like, yeah, each one came with a little bit of sense or stuff that can apply. Like focusing on Whole Foods, like Paleo does, absolutely. We should focus like primarily on Whole Foods resources, but now maybe more 80-20 rather than 100% type thing, right? For keto, it's like, okay, maybe carbohydrates are important because I realized I was just feeling more lethargic more frequently, especially I was playing a lot of soccer back then. I somehow still
Oh
managed,
yeah.
but in my mind, I'm like, could I have actually been a lot better or just more energized if I didn't? Don't know. Also, don't really care now because I can't go back and make young Colby, please, carbohydrates, please.
Yeah.
So like, I remember just trying all the things because whenever I would read it and just not have the comprehension or the critical thinking to challenge it, I was like, well, yeah, that makes sense. And kind of in a similar sense, like all those little like nuances of like don't eat before bed because it's just gonna turn to fat because you're sleeping. I used to firmly believe that. I used to tell my like everyone that, like, dude,
Yeah.
why are you eating before bed? Like, this just doesn't make sense. And like you wake up the next day, you weigh more. It's like, yeah, because you just ate before bed, dude. You got food in your stomach. like, and I can look back and laugh at that because again, now I've been through it. Like I know how easy it is to get sucked into certain things because it sounds like it makes sense, especially if someone says it in a compelling way and they come across very strongly and they say very strong words, like definitely avoid this, and you're like, oh God, I'm kind of scared, so I'm gonna listen. Right, and that's yeah. So a lot of those things, I think any little thing like that we kind of laugh at now, say like, no, don't do that. I probably did it. Those are the ones that kind of come to mind, and I think again, still grateful for those experiences because now I've learned better. Now I know again like how to approach it if someone comes at me with like similar like information. Like, okay, yeah, I can see how that makes sense, but here's what the research says. Here's what actually matters. Trends over time, all the stuff that now we know, and now that I put into my coaching practices for myself and others. So it's like, I think it's cool to look back at now and be like, damn, I came a long way for that too. So yeah, still
That's
learning as well, but I think getting better. And
oh
then
yeah.
similar to what you said, like too far in the ends of it fits your macros. Like the Pop Tart craze, I fell into it hard, but I got to try all
Yeah.
the cool Pop Tarts and find some good ones. That's the thing.
Pop tarts are great.
But it's not 75 grams of carbs. Great, that's the thing, and that's again such a good skill that I've learned. It's like, man, that's not worth it.
Yeah,
That's
that's
really
100%. They were worth it to me when I worked at Target and I was getting 20,000 steps a day
yes.
and trying to gain weight. And I'm eating 400 plus grams of carbs a day. Like then it's worth it.
Or like post weigh in powerlifting comp, like you need quick carbs.
Yeah,
And it's like, damn, I
for
haven't had
sure.
this in a while because I was gut volume cutting and water cutting, basically just not eating for a week because I didn't know better also. So I'm like, damn, Pop Tarts sound mad good.
I had a big I had a period of time where my schedule was kind of in a weird place to where I would eat breakfast and then I'd have like I think it was like 4 or 5 hours, and then I'd be like in class. I think this is my first couple years at a community college. I'd have class for like 4 or 5 hours, and then I had to go to the gym right after. And there wasn't a good time to have a meal like an hour or two before training. So I wanted something that would get me like not a ton of volume, but would kind of get me. So I'd have like a big breakfast, and then in the car on the way to the gym, I'd have like a protein shake and then a thing of Pop Tarts. Perfect. And then I would do a protein shake and like animal crackers. Perfect. Right. Um, I just that the Pop Tart talk unlocked that memory.
Yeah, there's that,
Yeah.
and more keeps unlocking, but I don't want to go down the spiral. But the
Yeah.
last one of like memory lane was it was the summer. I think that I just graduated, started lifting and getting into if it's your macro stuff. And dude, I was on the craze of again. This is me being like, let me dive all in to see like on the end of the spectrum to figure out and learn. Man, I was eating ice cream for breakfast every single day because I was like, yo, it's Breyers. It's sometimes it was a light ice cream, or sometimes it wasn't, but I can do it. And it's before training, and it gave me a nice pump, and it still fit my macros. So I was like, man, I just had ice cream for breakfast. Look at me.
I
This is adulthood, also, by the way. I was trying. That was like that phase of like, I'm an adult. I can do that.
uh-huh.
So it was like Kodiak pancakes with ice cream with an omelet, and I'm like, yeah, this is life. We're living
Did you
now.
did you ever follow the belt sander on Instagram?
The pet? I don't think so.
He was a big, I don't know if he's still doing it or not, but he was a big intermittent fasting guy. And he wasn't like weird about it, or he didn't even push it as a method. He was as just what he preferred,
Yeah.
right? In my memory, at least, it was just like, hey, this fits my lifestyle, right? But what he would do is he would always post his one meal a day, whatever he would always post he was going to eat,
Okay,
and
maybe,
it was
yeah.
the most egregious. Like, I made this because he would. It was super high. It was like 3 or 4 thousand calories in a
Yeah.
meal, right? And he also was making everything as macro friendly as possible. And I'm like, how does your stomach handle this
That's
much
good.
volume? But
170 grams of protein to the dome,
yeah,
just like
it's
that.
like I had this steak and this pizza and this entire apple pie and this, and I'm just like, what? But so I'm going down memory lane like a little
Yeah.
bit. But my version of the ice cream thing was from watching him and also watching the Protein Chef on YouTube back in the day. He had a bunch of like macro friendly recipes.
Yeah.
And I remember I can't remember which one I got it from, but I learned how to like bake like a protein cheesecake and like protein brownie with like
Yeah.
the casein stuff, casein protein stuff. And so I remember one day I made like a 8 by 13 thing of brownies. It was like cannellini beans and casein protein and cocoa powder, whatever else. So super macro friendly, super high protein. And I remember I ate that entire thing as for breakfast one day. Like what is it, 8 by 13 or whatever the size of the pan is. And I was like, my stomach definitely hurt, but
Oh.
it was that same like, yeah, I can do this, right?
Mhm.
Macros. Um,
I think
yeah, good times.
in a similar sense of that, if just, and I think a very practical one too, is falling into that trap of fat-free stuff. Oh, dude, the one that always sticks out, Twizzlers. Fat-free, it's on the label fat-free, and I'm like, yeah, I can eat all the Twizzlers I want. But like not understanding, like, dude, the calories add up, and the calories are actually what matters the most too. So I think that, and just that with that comes the idea of just actually reading labels, right? So I think if you're like, for us, it's like, yeah, of course, that's just normal. If you haven't actually done that, it's a game changer. It really is, and it's so easy to do. You just look at it and understand just how it's broken down, or mainly just look at the calories itself. Because you look at something like a regular, you know, whatever it is, cheese versus a low fat cheese. Sometimes the calories are the same because they bump up the carbohydrates in the low fat cheese to make it taste a little bit better, or whatever it is. So like, it's maybe the macros a little bit different, and maybe that fits you better, but it doesn't mean it's inherently better, and it might even be the same calories or even more, because sometimes they just jack it up with sugar or whatever it is to avoid it. Or if it says high protein, same thing. It's maybe 7 grams of protein because they have some peanuts in there, but that's not high protein.
Right.
So I think that's, I laugh, but I was the same one, same way, and just going through those experiences of just falling into the market, right? So it's, I think the big theme there is start challenging stuff more, right? And it's a little bit easier now because we have just a lot more information. But even if you're not familiar, just, experimenting, read a little bit, question, do a little bit of searching, some reading online, whatever it is, and then you might get some information and helps you figure that out. Instead of, and if you make those mistakes, or if we said some of the stuff here that we're saying, and you're just like, oh damn, I'm doing that right now. We have no judgment. We're not saying it's bad, but here's opening the eyes and saying, maybe I could be a little bit different. Maybe I can make some progress here. Or if not, same thing. Maybe it's just like, okay, I keep this in the back pocket for the future. But any other nutrition things pop up that kind of come for you? I kind of just throughout my whole history there, it's like, here's everything. Because again, I went
Yeah.
through a little bit more, but you're like, nah, dude, I'm good at this stuff actually.
No, I mean,
Nah,
it's what happens when you find Lane Norton 3 months into
yep.
your journey. It helps a lot.
Yeah.
I remember, so I lifted some in high school, and then I had a couple of years away where I did nothing, and then started and have been consistent since then. But if I think back to that initial phase in high school, um, I would have stuff like I didn't eat any protein at all.
Mm.
And I thought then I learned, oh, protein shakes are a thing. If I have a shake after my workout, I'll get jacked. And I didn't realize that my protein intake went from 40 to 60 grams a day, which, when you weigh, what did I weigh at the time? Probably like 170 or like, it just doesn't,
50% increase though. Whatever it is.
yeah.
150% increase.
So I remember that was a big thing. I remember I did I did P90X in high school, which was fun. But then I also did Insanity. They're like just kind of body weight calisthenics one. And I with that one, I tried to do the diet with it, and the diet is just not like I just starved myself. So this is actually a great example of a good mistake,
Mm.
right? Not just the fact that I was eating very little. We know now you probably don't want to lose weight too quickly because it can lead to some not so great things on the back end. Um, but what what I did, I didn't fully understand at the time that you lose weight, now your maintenance is lower because you're a smaller person. If you lose a substantial amount of weight, I didn't really understand that, and I also wanted to celebrate doing this cool thing, right? And so I remember on the fridge, our we just had a list of like recipes and restaurants and stuff. Like this is what we're doing when we're done. Me and my brother were both doing it, and shocking to everybody, I regained all the weight really quickly, right? So like that was a mistake for sure. Having the to do list afterwards, not the best. I think like regaining weight after a diet is normal. Like most people are gonna, almost everybody does that,
Yeah.
and it's good to do that sometimes if you get super super lean. But it's the having the list thing that I think is not the best,
Yeah.
not the best choice. But those are the only other things that are. I'm sure there's been other stuff that I'm just overlooking in the moment.
One kind of similar one there, and really the last one we do for nutrition, and it was recent, and I talked a little bit about it before, so I won't go too much into it. But I think just the idea of not respecting maintenance phases and being good at them. In my mind, it's like every time I get maintenance, start off like, yeah, I'm gonna track, I'm gonna make sure I stick with maintenance, and get to about week 4, I'm like, dude, I don't need to track, I'm at maintenance. Like I can eat what I want. Right? I'm just going for it. And then ended up just eating too much and being in a worse position down the line because I need to diet for longer or need to, just I get to back to a spot where it's like, damn, I'm already this heavy or I'm already seeing more body fat put on this quickly. I don't like that. And now I have to diet longer. And that's not fun too. So I think just being like respecting maintenance is more something I've just recently kind of got good at. And it's cool because now every time I approach a new maintenance phase, better and better and better, and it's like now I feel comfortable with them, and I feel like I know what I'm expecting, I know what they look like, I know how to approach it, and it's cool, and that's only recently too. So like even before, it's going through many iterations of these things and trial and error and failing or mistakes, but just learning through it. And sometimes you get it after one round. Sometimes it takes 20 rounds. Sometimes we're still going through it. So that's
Sometimes, so what you're saying is sometimes you just have to go for rounds, and eventually you get it right.
pretty much.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a very
Yeah.
important. Jokes aside, it's a very important message. Like learning from your mistakes, that's the goal, right?
Mhm.
But like that doesn't mean we're going to get it perfect the second time you try to do whatever the thing is, right? It's a process for sure.
Do you have any coaching ones that you want to talk about mistakes? Like what?
Obviously not.
If anyone's listening, I have never made a mistake with a client. Please hire me.
I think one early on is I sort of, especially with powerlifting, would treat I would treat people very similarly based on sort of regardless of their absolute strength level.
Hmm.
Like whether somebody's 1RM is 400-pound squat or a 600-pound squat or a 250-pound squat, whatever it is, that I would kind of treat a lot of the things similarly in terms of like how much volume we might kind of be doing as a baseline before we start to tinker and individualize, or what sort of fatigue management stuff, how long the block is, um, how much of a weight reduction do we do for back off sets, like just baseline stuff would be pretty similar, and then individualize from there, and thankfully the individualization process kind of eventually led me to this thing that now I look back on and I'm just like, dude, that didn't really make that much sense. Is when people are super super strong, now it's like, especially for squat and deadlift, we have like our one day in the week that's like the main primary day, and then the second day I still usually like to have a secondary day in there, but it's like easy. And the stronger somebody is in an absolute sense, the easier that secondary day is, and it sort of just becomes a day to keep the technique feeling good. Maybe it actually helps recovery just a little bit. Maybe it is some stuff that we get a little bit of a hypertrophy stimulus out of it, or just a really minimal strength it's just keeping it easier and easier. And the closer we would get to competition, making it easier and easier and easier again. Um, I remember hearing like Ray Williams, who would just hit each of his lifts once a week. And I'm just like, why? Like, um, which is so naive in hindsight. And also shows you how strong of a powerlifter I
Yeah.
was, that I just didn't really get it until I worked with enough people.
Mhm.
And now I'm just like, it just makes so much sense. Like, a lot of things are the same, regardless of absolute strength. On a relative sense, a lot of stuff is the same. Just not everything. Like, there's just something about being crazy strong that just beats your body up more. And you can only do, like, there's, I don't know what the threshold is, but there does seem to be some threshold where it starts to shift a little bit, and we got to be really careful with fatigue. So that's probably the biggest thing. Again, I know this, it sounds weird, but it's like I found such great influences early on,
Mhm.
and like I didn't start coaching until like I had been preparing to be a coach for years before I actually started. So I had learned, I heard people talk about all these mistakes, and just learning from people. And then I was coached for a couple of years before I started, and just soaked all that in. And it ended up being like a mentorship thing, and like, so that's helped immensely. But you still find ways to make mistakes
Oh,
sometimes, don't you?
yeah. I really like how you put that at the end there. It was just like you, or again, respecting what coaching is, and maybe even took too long to get into it because you're like, I don't know if I'm ready for it. At least that's how I was.
Yeah,
It's like
maybe.
I feel bad charging, or I feel bad doing it, and it's. I think that's a good quality to have at first, because you're like, okay, let me take time to learn and to maximize as much as I can and equip myself as best as I can, so that I can have the greatest chance of helping everyone, right? And doing that. So yeah, I think that's really cool. And I was in a similar boat where it's just like just trying stuff out, reading as much as you can, listening to podcasts. I remember, and then kind of the note you made, I remember, Eric Helms was talking about Bryce Lewis's approach of training. Okay, you have a cap at 600 pounds in your deadlift, or 700 pounds, whatever it was. Like, you're only hitting this once
Yeah.
a week. Like, that's your cap. You cannot go above it, even though you can squat or deadlift a lot more than that. We're not going to right now. This is not appropriate to do so. Right. So kind of understanding the outliers and understanding where that fits within the person. Not everyone needs to have caps, but if you're seeing someone experience similar things, hey, here's maybe something you can do. Right. And that's not something that you ever learn in like a personal training
Right.
certification or anything like that. Or maybe you never even come across it because, you don't have elite level powerlifters, but it's like knowing that can be helpful, because then you can also tweak it to a similar situation in a way. So I think that's cool that you can do that. I think the biggest thing for me was really accepting that I can't help everyone, and that I am not the best coach for everyone. That doesn't mean that I'm a bad coach or that I can't coach certain people or whatever it is, but just knowing that sometimes different personalities just don't mesh, and just being completely okay with that. At first, early on, I was like, when someone would you know it wouldn't click, or I was like afraid to make a mistake, because it's like, okay, they're saying that this isn't working. Like, am I not doing something right? Or they're saying that they want this certain approach, and I'm like, well, I don't know if I can provide that. So just being very caught up in that idea of like, I need to help everyone, and I can or should be helping everyone. So it took me some time to be like, hey, at the end of the day, we want a client to get to their goals as best as they can. And if that means that you're not their coach, that's okay. And you need to be able to vocalize that and say, hey, like, we got a great team, or I know someone that might be a better fit because they're just more powerlifting focused, or they're more, however their approach is tailored, it's more tailored for you. And like, maybe that's not how I coach, right? Maybe I'm not as aggressive as a coach, or I'm not like, bro, just harden up. Like, that's not maybe how I do. Or maybe if someone wants more out of the coaching that doesn't fall in line with how I approach it, differences like that, like expectation management, again, that always comes out of that. It's like, I'm not going to be on my phone every single minute, and you're going to get a text back within 10 minutes. Like, that's just not how I do it. If that's what you want, you can want what you want, but I can't provide that, because that's just not the services that I do. That's not in line with how I coach, right? And just accepting that idea. I think that took some time early on to accept, because that's tough, because like, I want to help people, but at the end of the day, am I actually helping them if I'm not giving them what they need? No.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's huge. And also on the side of like the client, I think it's, when you're looking for a coach, it's important to like be aware of that also. and that you look for somebody who you feel suits you, right? Like, um, some coaches are going to be like really lean hard into data,
Mhm.
and like we're going to collect all this stuff, and some people thrive on that. Some people it's like, ah, this stuff's cool, but we just don't need that much. I would rather just keep it simple, and some people are very X's and O's. Some people are whatever else. Like I chose my coach because of how he thinks about things. It's the psychology part, it's the philosophy, it's the emotional side of everything. That's what I needed. Like I know how to write a program, right? Like I needed
Mhm.
that stuff. Other people, you don't need that stuff at all, but you need help writing a program, and so you can look for a coach that you feel would suit you, and that'll save you time and money as well,
Yeah.
right? Which is good. So just as an aside,
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very helpful.
that's a good one. I've had a similar experience with that stuff
Mhm.
too.
Yeah. Any other coaching specific ones, or do you have any just like general ones that maybe have come up recently, or that you felt like were big ones in terms of mistakes over life that have just resonated, maybe specifically for training? Like it ties into it, but it hasn't been specifically
Yeah,
for training. Or
I think on maybe kind of a similar note to what you said of with not being the best fit for everybody, just sort of not getting too high or too low with the natural fluctuations of life, of how your training's going, of how business is going, of you know coaching inquiries coming in or whatever, right? Like, um, when things are great, be happy that they're great. You know what I mean? And do what you can to kind of keep them great. When they're not great, try not to get too bogged down. And I think at times I make the mistake of getting too bogged down when things are not super great. Sometimes I lose that perspective, and it just kind of feels like nothing is great and nothing will be great. And I can kind of spiral like that. And if that's not the least helpful response, then I don't know what is. But it's natural for some people, right? And so I think that's something that I've certainly noticed myself do, and basically trying to like figure out different ways to respond. Um, there's a lot of options. Different people are different. Um, yeah, that's definitely one that I would say. I'm trying to think of other like you know X's and O's kind of things.
there's one I
But
have that if that you
okay,
could think about others while I talk, if that's okay.
yeah.
It's kind of similar, or at least it was similar takeaway that I had, but in a different way. So I think lately, or like 2-3 weeks ago, I got sick, and it really made me realize how bad I am at actually resting
Hmm.
and being able to take a break from things. Because when you're sick, you're forced to. Sometimes you also don't have the option. You just kind of have to push through it. But I was like, man, I either have to go all in and rest now because I have stuff coming up that I can't miss. So it's either now or never type of thing. So I need to like just bog down in my room and just chill for like 2 days, right? Because then that's where everything happens. Rather than push it now and have it persist for longer. So see if I can expedite that process of healing. And I just really dove into that, and I was able to not worry about not doing work or not feeling like I was behind or not feeling like I should be doing this, should be doing that. I was just like, I should be resting because that's what I need to be doing right now. I need to get better so that I can do everything else I need to do. And again, like a similar takeaway, like you had said, is just accept it. Like, damn, I was so caught up in just being busy and doing stuff that I forgot how how like lucky I am to be busy and to have this pressure and to have certain stressors and like some of that is kind of a privilege in a way, and we forget that too. So that like having to force and rest, maybe acknowledge that a little bit too, and be thankful for all that. But I think, yeah, it's kind of hard to detach from certain things when you are so busy, and it's like I have 30 minutes to rest. Like how can I make that the most efficient resting period so then I can then be better at everything else? That's tough, man. It really is. So I think that really opened my eyes to that. And that's something I've had reflections on before. And same thing, it gets better every now and then, but sometimes it's just harder to do. It's like, damn, I'm too busy, can't rest. I got to do stuff. Or like, I can't have that rest that I need because that's just how it is right now. Maybe next time around. Or we're just like, hey, 10 minutes of Zen is extremely beneficial, even if it's just 10 minutes, or even if it's just you only watch half of an anime episode, 12 minutes. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I hate doing that because I just feel like I want to watch it all. But I'm like, dude, it's either the 10-12 minute episode halfway and you go in that little intermission part, that's when you leave and do other stuff. It's either that or no anime. I'd rather do that than no anime, right? So it's like those little things where it's like, okay, appreciating time and how beneficial it is. Like taking deep breaths, smelling the air outside, smelling flowers outside, little things like that. Okay, it all adds up. It all matters. Be better at, differentiating times of things and being more intentional and all that fun stuff. It kind of really was heightened recently in that forced rest sickness period.
Yeah, I love it, dude. We actually made quite a few mistakes, didn't we?
Oh, that was just on page 1. I'm gonna flip it over and we'll see what we got. Now, there are more. There is, and that's
Oh, for
okay.
sure.
That's completely okay. And I think, I don't know, I feel good talking about it, and like it is helpful
Yeah.
to talk about it, right? So basically, this is our therapy episode for us. No, I think well, yes, but also trying to, like you said early on, just trying to say, hey, here's how we navigate it, or just again making it more acceptable to be okay with making mistakes and talk about them and understand how we approach it and be specific with it, but also be general and just understanding what reflection is and what the process of embracing mistakes looks like. So I think it's kind of the approach. It was fun. I learned some stuff about you and your approaches. It helped me. It gave me some good skills to have. So that was cool. Thank you for that. And
Likewise.
that's just how it is.
I,
So
I think that the last thing I'll throw out there, food for thought, this is how I try to think about it anyway, is like, it's obviously it's okay to make mistakes. As we said earlier, it's not just that it's okay, like it just will happen, right? But to not feel we don't want to get too upset about it, because then you kind of, fall into the pit of despair, and it's harder to climb out. But so I think it's important to internalize that it's okay to make mistakes. At the same time, you don't want to be like I have occasionally been, where you're too okay with making mistakes. It's so small of a deal that now you're losing sight of the process of what you actually want. And so I think it's important to be bothered by it a little bit, right? Like you got to still care. Otherwise, if you don't care, then why are you trying to do this, right? Do something else with your time. But yeah, so trying to kind of be in that middle ground somewhere. That's how I've been trying to think about it anyway, and it seems to be helpful, at least for the way my brain is working.
I'm so glad you said that last one because that was another recent reflection I had where I also was I was diving too much into that. It doesn't matter. Like, who cares? Don't let it affect you. And then I just remember thinking to myself, something happened, a couple things were happening, and I was angry, and I was like, damn, I normally don't get angry like this. Instead of being like, okay, don't worry about it, whatever, just forget it. I sat with the anger, and I'm like, you know what? It's okay to be angry. I rather, and it just made me have this like mantra or this thing that I was repeating to myself at the time, and I think it's gonna be helpful for me in the future. Is just like feelings over apathy, right? Like I don't want to be apathetic. Like who cares? Because then, like I said, you're missing the whole point, dude. Like you should be mad sometimes. You should be sad sometimes.
Dude,
Like if you're not, then you just don't care. Or like it's like what are you
yes,
doing?
yeah,
Like dude, be angry.
100%.
It's okay. Like you're not a bad person if you get angry sometimes.
I think it's good. It's yet another thing that I went too far with was stoicism.
Yeah.
I had this huge journey with stoicism, and I was reading. I read a few books. I shouldn't say huge journey. Like it's not like I read every book out there, whatever. But I read like
First
a
in line at
handful.
the Ryan Holiday book
Yeah,
signings.
yeah. I did read a couple of his for sure. But I was going down and I was like, yeah, this is great. I've in the past like have been too emotional about certain things, and I think that it's led to stuff I didn't like, whatever. And I got to this point where I was too stoic, right? And I'm still now. It's been 6 years, and I'm still trying to pull myself out of that mindset of it's not okay to show emotion. Like that's still so strong, which is not what stoicism is all about, to be clear. Like that was me doing and going too far. But having emotions is a good thing. It shows that you care, right? And sometimes it's a signal of what needs to change in your life. Sometimes it's a signal of what needs to stick around. It also is just sort of what life is about, feeling things, experiencing things. That's my girlfriend is like, I mean, in the best way, like the most emotional person
Mm.
that I know, right? Like I told her that before we even started dating, I was like, you are the most alive person I've ever met. It's crazy. And I admire it so much. And I'm trying to get some of that, have some of that rub off on me, but so I'm so glad you said that. I think that's really important. And also is if you get a little bit upset with yourself for making a mistake, like cool, it's more motivation to not make that same mistake over and over and over. And then you are me and you look up and you're 5 months into your off season and your training is sucked for the whole time. And it's like, what are we doing, man?
It ends up being a disservice to yourself if you just
It does.
overlook it, right? Yeah. So yeah, I think it was a good way in the end. They're just kind of full circle. So I mean, thank you all for listening. Jake, thanks for sharing. I appreciate you. It's been a lot of fun. I think go make mistakes, everyone. Go make mistakes. Go feel things. Go just go do stuff. Go do stuff, feel things, make mistakes, learn, repeat, enjoy life. That's what we're all about here. Go ahead.
One last mistake that we made. I don't think we showed off our cool shirts when we
Oh,
started. You can kind of see yours. I'm a little
why
too.
didn't we even do this episode if we didn't do that? Look at this one.
That's way better than mine. I got the. You just activated my trap
Ooh,
card, is what it
that's
says.
a cool one. I like that one a lot. I didn't even know you had that. That just that's the way you end the episode. So
So.
show the shirts. That's how it is. Thank y'all for tuning in. As always, we'll see you at the next one.